It's not anymore just a demo environment, it's actually an innovation environment, because you can have nice strategies, but if you don't bring them to life through concrete projects, it will not happen. Young software engineers, they're looking for environments from a larger corporation like us, which gives them the benefit of a startup. I would never expect from anyone in the team something I wouldn't be ready to do. Meaning respect towards the team members plays an important role. I did not really appreciate the importance of just being yourself with a client. If you shield yourself, they cannot trust you. I don't believe you have it or not. I believe in that you can work very hard to acquire capabilities or skills or competencies, because hard work increases the probability of success.
This is CIONet TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm today here with Bernd Gross, who is the CTO of Software AG, and Bernd has more than 25 years of experience in working for top technology companies. He worked 9 years for Nokia, for instance, both in Germany, UK, Finland, and where he was head of business innovation, development, and also head of the machine-to-machine business. Now he became the CEO of Cumulocity, which was the machine-to-machine spin-off of Nokia, in 2012, and that company got acquired by Software AG in 2017, where today, Bernd, you are the CTO. You have a master in ICT, and you have an MBA from the London Business School. Very warm welcome, Bernd.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So Bernd, maybe to get started could you in a nutshell tell us what does Software AG stand for today?
Software AG is one of the leading infrastructure software companies. We are the second biggest software company in Germany, and if I'm not mistaken, the third one in Europe. Okay. Yeah? So we're really, in that sense, a big player. But if you look at software companies globally, we are just below 5,000 people. So we are a smallish player if you compare us, with companies like Microsoft or Oracle or IBM. Yep. But I would say we are a very focused company. In the areas we focus in, we are leading. We are very recognized, Forrester, Gartner, recognized leader in the product areas we're focusing on. Some examples, yes. For example, we are one of the leading integration platform provider with our well-known brand WebMethods. WebMethods is deployed in almost 50% of all Fortune 100 companies globally. We are deploying real-time analytics platforms to the banking segment. We have a market share of 25% in that segment with our Apama analytics engine. And we are one of the leading platform provider in the IoT domain. We just recently got positioned in the Magic Quadrant as the number one for industrial Internet of Things platforms, which we supply globally across the industries. In smart city cases, but also in a lot of industrial Internet of Things cases.
So, leader in a number of different segments, right?
Leader in the number of, so the infrastructure software we are focusing on, because of our size, we have to be either number one or two. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. If you are like a big shop, like 100,000 employees, etc., you have a very different way of working. Then you might, have a profitable business if you have some segments you're not dominating. But in our case, it's not like that. In the areas we are working in, we have to be number one to at least number three globally. And that makes us different because our mindset is different. Our DNA, how we work is different. Because even so we are only, as I mentioned, below 5,000 people company, we have to be a leader. So we have a very strong, in our DNA, there's a strong leadership dimension in that sense.
So in the Software AG, you have the machine-to-machine, the industrial industry of things, as business, as you call it. So that is that the Cumulocity business? And because I understand you're heading that part of the business.
Yeah. So when I joined Software AG, actually we always have an interesting perspective on that. So I remember our previous CEO, he was introducing me with, Bernd is one of the co-founders and the CEO of Cumulocity, which we acquired.
Yep.
And now he's, in our management team. I always then actually correct him saying, by the way, I was the co-founder and CEO of Cumulocity, and I selected Software AG to get acquired from you. So we always made that joke, But in a sense, the business reasoning, when you build up a startup company and you start globalizing, internationalizing it, and you have a company like Software AG active in 70 countries globally with a strong portfolio in what they're doing, there's a logical, merit between these two companies, because I knew that Software AG will be able to scale up the IoT business in a much faster, more professional way as I would be able to do it alone. Maybe a small anecdote. I opened up an office in Singapore when we were still independent company, and it's difficult to hire a managing director you don't really know, and set up the controlling systems. We also opened up an office and registered a corporation in Delaware, in the US and so on. So we really started to internationalize out of Europe, but it was very, very difficult. So I really felt, doing that in 70 countries, for example, like Software AG has, will be 10 years plus. Activity, and therefore, the joining Software AG, joining forces, and building the IoT and analytics business as a separate line of business was a perfect fit. Made a lot of sense.
So you play two roles today. You're heading the IoT business, and you are the CTO of Software AG in Global. Is that correct?
So I'm the managing director of our IoT business. Actually, the office you're visiting today is the Cumulocity GmbH, so to speak. So I'm a managing director of that unit, as well as I'm the CTO of the Software AG group. Yeah, that's correct. And I started that role beginning of the year.
Okay. And you told me that the office of Cumulocity is in Düsseldorf, and the reason was you had to choose where you could put the office, and you're from Düsseldorf.
No, yeah. So when we started with Cumulocity 2012, we actually, that's a kind of interesting story. We started in California, in Mountain View, and we innovated the idea of an IoT platform in California, in Silicon Valley. But when we felt actually, it was 4 of us. So we start with 4 people, so very small startup. And we felt actually our strength is B2B. And we also felt that our industrial knowledge, was actually an asset for us. Whereas in California, even today, when I'm, for example, speaking there at a conference, let's say, IoT World in Santa Clara, I still, when I'm meeting people there, I'm still feeling they have a very focused consumer orientation in how they see the world. And then they think about IoT, they think about wearables, or they think about consumer products. They only started maybe 2 years, 3 years ago, a lot of companies in startups in Silicon Valley really to think about B2B IoT enterprises and B2B middleware software in a sense. And so we actually thought, we kind of felt that is that already in 2012. So we decided, hey, it would increase probably our probability to make it a successful startup if we would relocate. And we decided to relocate. Then we decided actually to do that in Germany because I'm German, and we, by coincidence decided to do it in Düsseldorf because, actually not only me, but the key team has been originally from Düsseldorf.
Okay, so tell me, this IoT business, Cumulocity, the solution, what exactly do your software solutions do?
Okay, so when we started, the innovation was clearly in the first phase towards the understanding that the market is fundamentally changing. We saw hardware prices going down. The prices to connect things, machines, pumps, cars, whatever you have in mind, the price to connect them these modules and modems, the price was dropping constantly. We also saw that the connectivity prices, to transport or transmit the data from A to B, from the machine to the internet, was also dropping dramatically. Actually today we have companies or players in the market who offer you for 10 euros for 10 years connectivity. Think about that. So €1 a year. But however, we felt there was something missing. So connectivity cost was dropping. Hardware costs to connect these machines, modems, gateways, and so on were dropping. But the solutioning costs were not. So how to generate value on top of the data once you have it in your data store, or wherever you store it, and then how to create solutions in an efficient and convenient way. Yep. And we felt actually a cloud platform, which normalizes the integration layer so that you can use the same software tools again and again and again, will help to reduce fundamentally the solution cost. That's what the platform does. Okay. So the platform, has on one hand speaks to any type of machines with any type of protocols. You have these kind of specific, languages which these machines speak. I always say actually we speak the language of the machine in a sense. So we kind of take that and normalize this into a data model, which is then accessible by the same software blocks, and it doesn't really matter, is it a car or a motorbike or a boat or a machine or a pump which is connected at the end of the day. And that's the innovation we came up with.
And then the applications on top of that normalized data are like analytical systems, or are real-time regulation systems, or what are the applications on top of that?
Yeah, so that really depends on the use case, on the segment, etc. But out of the box, if clients use our platform, they get an IoT device management. So with that, they can do alarm management of the machine, do software management like firmware management. They can also do configuration management, remote configuration management, and so on. So they get out of the box an application which is called IoT device management. They get data applications like visualization, dashboarding tools, and so on, so that they can visualize them. But they also get more sophisticated analytics tools like streaming analytics, so that you can have a real-time streaming. You get, let's say, data coming in and you can correlate that data. You can deploy analytics receipts to identify, events which are of interest to you. Let's say a machine, stops working, or supply chain events, and based on these events, then you can again initiate actions. Okay.
Could you give maybe one or two examples of most innovative ways that your platform is being used by your clients?
Sure. Maybe one example I like in terms of the scale is Nordex. Nordex is a wind turbine manufacturer in northern Germany, actually out of Hamburg. And they have an installed base for wind turbines of about 7,000 wind turbines deployed globally. That's from a power production, it's about 25 gigawatt power production. To give you a feeling what that means, it's about 30 coal-fired power plants. So it's renewable energy which replaces 30 coal-fired power plants. And each of these wind turbines generates a massive amount of data. Actually, every day it's one gigabyte data coming from that wind turbine. And in order to manage, to operational manage, and to improve the efficiency of these wind turbines, Nordic decided to use Software AG's Cumulocity IoT platform for cloud and edge. So that's one of our technology advantages, that we have a distributed technology with the same API structure on both sides. And with that, they actually then do remote management and control for the wind turbines, but also do analytics in a traditional analytics fashion. They aim to improve the energy production KPI. So the cost of energy production is one of the key KPIs, and they're using it to lower their costs.
So they have 7 terabytes of data. If they have 7,000 of these turbines and one does a gigabyte per day, so they have 7 terabytes a day.
So they have a massive amount of data. However, and that's why we're using Edge there, not all of that is pumped into the cloud. So that's you know, the edge computing, you know, is a very important enabler in many of the industrial Internet of Things technologies, where you kind of aggregate data a lot, because not all the information is relevant after 5 minutes or so, which you're collecting them. So in that sense, we optimizing the connectivity with aggregation of data.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about your role as a CTO of Software AG. I mean, Software AG is a 50-year-old software company.
That's right.
So, what is your role? How and what kind of changes are you making in Software AG in your role?
Yeah. So I started only this year, so January this year. So it's now 7 months and something, almost 8 months. And you know what I did as a first initiative was that I wanted to change, or let's say add another viewpoint on innovations in terms of how you innovate in today's agile world. You know, if you think about it, the role of a CTO has fundamentally changed. In today's world, it is extremely difficult to forecast what is happening in 3 or 5 years from now. So that means you have to have a certain agility to your business decisions. You have to have a system and a way of working which makes you, which enables you to react on market changes, on new disruptions, on new trends, new business opportunities. So that means basically the way we are working cannot be like a traditional software company with, you know, a three-year road mapping type of initiative, which is actually quite standard in today's, even in software engineering world. You know, larger companies are still, you know, road mapping their products in that way. And even, you know, we also have a lot of industrial clients using our software, and they have actually 7 years, you know, product life cycles, including software then, you know. So that's, I kind of fundamentally feel that needs to change. So what we did then is, in order to make that tangible and practical for the teams, we initiated, for example, you know, co-innovation. But co-innovation in a true meaning of co-innovation, meaning that there's, in our definition, there's always 3 parties on the table. It's the end user really using the software. Often we have partners in between, you know, like system integrator partner, or, you know, a go-to-market partner, or, you know, someone who offers actually our software in a reselling channel mode or through a cloud offering, and then us. So what we move from just our first point to the market, which is often the partner or the channel partner, or towards the end user. So we incorporated and demanded in all co-innovations that the end user is part of it. So that helps us from an outside-in perspective to get a perspective, a different perspective on board. So that's in a big program with a few million euros budget behind, which we are orchestrating, and we basically deciding if a co-innovation makes sense or not. Maybe let me give you 1 or 2 examples. In Australia, we did that with a partner of us, which is Telstra. You know, it's a telco carrier, the main telecommunication company in Australia. They're using our technology to run a cloud offering, Telstra branded, towards their enterprise customers. So they're selling actually our software with Telstra branded offering and towards their customers. So now they wanted to enter a new domain, which was utilities. And they felt that they wanted not to just develop applications in a traditional way, but use new ways of working. So they engaged with us, and we proposed them to use our co-innovation methodology, where we then ended up with inviting Southeast Water, it's a water utility in Australia, to come together with us, to Telstra and us, and we then innovated around the very scarce resource water in Australia, and managing in real time now the water pipeline system, the distribution system for water. And that's all empowered. We have various phases. Obviously, the first phases has been implemented. Now the next phase starts. But it's all, empowered through our software products. But the last mile of real differentiated value add comes from that co-innovation. Because that really gave us the domain-specific know-how and the problem statement, so that our software could be then, optimized to fulfill that problem.
So to implement a culture of co-creation, co-innovation, how do you do that in practice?
Well, that's a good question. So it is, of course, a mindset shift, because what you have, in a sense, you have a very strong product management function in any type of product company like we are. Product managers are the power.
They're the king.
They're the kings. They're the kings, and they have a very powerful role to play. Especially the both outbound and inbound type of product manager. And of course, we have to engage with them and to agree with them that the future way of developing the products from an outside-in perspective is through co-creation, co-innovation. And I'm not saying, and in a sense, in these discussions we have had, I was never in a way that I told them you have to do it like this. My way of communication is more like, I'm trying to emphasize the changes in the market. I'm trying to emphasize what is happening, that we have to have this flexibility, the agility. I'm also trying to emphasize that there must be more ways of innovating than simply pushing a product roadmap into the market. So that it kind of we need to probably do that and continue that. We do continue that as well, because road mapping is an important part of our product management. But we increasingly now also have initiatives like co-creation from an outside in to influence the development of our product.
So changing the mindset, the way that people work, that your product teams, do you need to give them training? Do you need to give them new tools? What are the very practical things that they need to do different, and what are the new capabilities that they need?
So when you look at product management as a very important function within a product company, like our software product company, we have very, very bright, very smart people in that domain. We have to. I mean, that's per definition, and they're very, very smart people. And what we have to enable as a journey is something which most of them know what's happening. They are very outward oriented. That's why they're doing product management. But to some extent, sometimes, when you are in the daily work, having to manage your product and all the other difficulties, you have customer meetings, you have sometimes also, not so nice customer meetings, so-called escalation meetings, which happen, you have all of that. You tend sometimes to deprioritize the future anticipation of market trends, of issues, and so on. And that's exactly what we do in the CTO office. So we see ourselves as a partner of our existing product management team, where we actually dedicate senior software solution architects to help fill a gap a busy product manager is sometimes not able to fulfill. And you know what? The ones who understand that, because it's very visible once you start identifying that and discussing about that, they actually appreciate and embracing the initiative what we have around that outside-in innovation, as well as strategic definition of our future.
So you're working closer and closer with your end clients. You do that through your partners, to co-creation. And so how do you use these? What are they, and how do you use them?
So another way for that outside-in thinking. So one is that co-innovation, co-creation, a new dialogue with the product management in that sense. And another one is also closer industry corporations. We also do. That's very strategic to us, and to have a very, very deep industry orchestrated corporations. That gives us also an additional outside-in perspective. Also university, a new way of engaging with universities. We do that currently. We are setting up a partnership with RWTH in Aachen, which is one of the well-known technology universities, at least here in Germany. We actually want to move into some of their facilities where they have production facilities set up, real, production environments, and they are then, continuously optimizing production environments. And we are now contributing with our software technology to help them to really do Industry 4.0 projects in a university lab. So that's also important. That gives us feedback to our R&D and our product management to, again, get a different perspective in addition to our road mapping. Now, the biggest challenge any type of organization is having, including Software AG, is executing. There's so many ideas, there's so many things to do. That's why I always try to, you can have nice strategies, but if you don't bring them to life through concrete projects, it will not happen. And all of these initiatives I just mentioned, they're tangible. They are really concrete people doing something and involving and make it happen. I think that's the most important role I see as a CTO, is that in today's environment, we have to act fast and try it out, do the next thing, and really, don't do too many things at once. I would agree to that, but not just try to define something for half a year before you start executing. That's not anymore what you should do.
So your role is to inspire, to help people to work in a quicker, more agile ways, to help them to co-create. Because innovation happens at the edges in collaboration with universities
and I'm holding the budgets for that and financing a lot of this, and creating cross-functional teams for that, for example. So I'm a very strong believer in if you look at organizational structures, in many senses you still have these top-down, very hierarchical setups, And they have been built for a certain reason, which I fully get, and I appreciate that. On the other hand, when you look at today's disruptions and innovations and what's happening, I do feel that the best teams are not always the teams which sit together in one silo. I do think the best teams are the teams which come together across different departments, across different organizations, so-called cross-functional teams. And they are so much more efficient than, if you would just task something top-down to a department or a team lead. So that's a strong, I'm a strong believer in empowering cross-functional teams. And we have been doing this within the CTO office. We're kind of role modeling that and would like to expand that across the company.
I can imagine with your experience as a startup, you started with a team of 4 people and then grew it into a successful...
250 is now the size. Yeah?
So I can imagine that that's also what you bring to the table here, that you have this more agile startup way of thinking and how to manage customer expectations, deliver quickly, MVPs and so on.
So if you think about, I used to be 18 years in corporate environments, 18 years corporate environment, large corporates. So I kind of always see both sides, right? And it was very painful for me when we did the spin-off. We had no customer, no revenues. Yeah, so we had
money.
We got some money. That's money. Right. That's the good word. The good news was that we had a starting point. Yeah. But still, I remember we went to the first clients, and we introduced the platform. We had the product, the platform, very well engineered, beautiful platform. So then the client asked us, so where's the platform? Can you show it to me? I think, no, I can't show it to you. What do you mean? It's a software platform. Yeah, I want to see it. What do you mean you want to see it? yeah, where's the user interface? No, we don't have a user interface yet. So what happened is when you're in a corporate environment, you are developing a platform with non-functional capabilities first in mind, like multi-tenancy, high availability, and this elasticity, these cloud capabilities, and you don't have really you don't see immediately what the client wants to do, what the customer wants to do with it. So we actually had a very frustrating first 6 months, you can imagine, having a very nice platform, but couldn't really demonstrate that. So we needed to add a user interface to it, which we did. And we actually, in the later years, we actually got praise for the clarity of the user interface. So we put a lot of effort into that. But if you think about it from a corporate environment, you wouldn't do that. If you would be a startup, if you would start with a startup, you wouldn't think about the scalability, horizontal scalability, and so you would just do the interface, the user interface, the application, and the other stuff will come later on once you grow. And and we were in that sense today, I would say we were lucky doing a proper platform before we did the user interface. Yeah. But in the first half year or year as an own independent company was quite painful, and that is of course a knowledge, not only me, the team, the core team of the Cumulocity team, and experienced business leaders have that understanding, and they see two sides of the coin, and I think that's something we as a team, as a CTO office team, really try to get into the company.
You talk a lot about team and how your team has a role, needs to be a role model for the rest of the company. Tell me a little bit about your management style. What is your, are you the enlightened dictator? What is your management style? How do you build and make teams successful?
Yeah, so that's always a very good question. Yeah, and I think I remember remember through different courses in the previous roles, how to motivate teams and so on. But if I would boil that down to one very important part, is that I would never expect from anyone in the team something I wouldn't be ready to do. So that's kind of meaning respect towards the team members plays an important role. Trust, respect. So I want people to feel comfortable. I'm not saying they should be, living in their comfort zone. I'm pushing people out of the comfort zone, actually a lot. But I want to ensure that they feel they are in a trusted, open environment, and we respect each other. Yeah. That is for me the foundation of everything. If the trust isn't there, I don't think you can do much as a leader. If the trust is there, then the work starts. Because then you have actually to do also, to encourage people taking on ownership, empower people. So I'm, when you would say once the trust is there, I'm someone who is that kind of an empowerment person. I would like to.
How do you do that exactly? How do you empower people in your team?
So, with empowerment comes a great responsibility. Because if you don't coordinate empowerment, if people are not aware of what empowerment means, you create chaos. So with empowerment comes a clear definition of outcome. So what do you want to achieve with that exercise? Yeah. So the ownership of business objectives is the flip side of the empowerment. And that's how I'm doing it, how we are doing it as a team. We do actually identify initiatives, we identify our goals, business goals or whatever goals, and then we define together the outcome, the business outcomes we want to achieve. Yep. And by doing that as a team exercise, we set already the objectives, and we also ensure that it's structured, that we don't overlap, and we ensure it's a smooth process, but people also get the understanding that they are in charge of delivering it. Yep. And I think that's kind of opposite to micromanagement, right? So where you would give tasks away and not responsibilities. in my view, we should give responsibilities. We should distribute responsibilities through empowerment with clear business objectives.
Yeah. So that's how you create efficient and productive teams, by empowering them, by giving them freedom, but also giving them the responsibility as well.
That's right, and being there, you know. So it's not only me. That there's a lot of you know, experience in the team.
Yeah.
Personally, you know, I see a lot of coaching happening between the team members itself, you know, because they have, you know, diverse teams, they have different backgrounds, and I think that's also the very important, that you don't, you know, create you know, Rambo style of execution agents, that you understand, or that you create an environment, a trusted environment where that people really understand that they can at any point of time ask for support, different views, for having time for a discussion, and that's not only always focused to me. It shouldn't be. It should be a distributed and joint exercise. And that's what's happening. If I see a functional team, I see that a lot happening, that coaching between the team members happens. Then I kind of sense it works.
Okay. And how easy is it for you to attract people and to then make them successful and to build successful teams? Is that a challenge, or is it easy for you because you're still a software company, exciting new technology and so on?
Yeah, I think the talent acquisition, or talent, or however you call that, plays a more and more important role. It's difficult. I think you know, we have been looking to hire 20 more people just on this site since quite a while, and it's difficult.
And why? I mean, let's give it to the world. Why would they want and come to work for you and the team here? What is so exciting in working here?
Yeah. I think the technology we have, the business focus, and the way we work is it's a nice combination of a very small startup, while at the same time being with a company of 5,000 people. So you get the best of two worlds. And I can tell you, startups, you know, a lot of people go to Berlin or to other places where they, you know, Brussels and so on, where they create their companies and startups, you know. The reality is most of them fail, right? So there's always a positive story to startups, you know, but, you know, it's also risk. A risk to move in the pure startup environment. So personally, you know, I see a trend that more and more younger software engineers, for example, they understand that trade-off, and they're looking for environments from a larger corporation like us, which gives them the benefit of that flexible and empowerment-driven agility of a startup. And look at our office, you know. I don't know if you have a chance to walk through our office. In that environment, we are here at the Media Harbor. It's kind of a perceived nice environment next to the River Rhine. You know, you can walk outside. You have a lunch opportunities quite a lot, and after work there's some, you know, bars and places. Here's an open office environment. That's all possible not only in a startup company, that's also possible to offer in a corporate
Because you've worked for large corporates, you worked in your own very small startup, now you're somewhere in the middle. What are the advantages of the three different ways of working? Big corporate, I mean, where you are now, mid-size organization and a stable software company, or a startup. What did you enjoy in these three environments?
Well, they are all very different,
and
I think, you know, I had you know, it's difficult to say one is better than the other, but you know, with the hindsight of my experience, I think I would, if I could choose, I would select the mid-sized software company like Software AG as my starting opportunity to build my professional career, because it gives you the whole bandwidth. You know, starting with a large corporate, a lot of corporates struggle at the moment, as you know. They have their source of secret source of profitability. But then when you think about staying ahead of the game, innovating, there's a lot of challenges some of the large corporates have. Yeah? And they have all their initiatives to overcome that. I'm pretty sure many will do, but they are struggling with the speed and agility of today's business life. Now, the smaller ones I mentioned, it's very fine, it's nice to work in a startup environment, company, you small team, very like a family environment, and very nice. But as I mentioned, it's a bit risky. Yeah. And if you want to have a 2-3 years journey to your first job, or even longer, 5 years, whatever you have, and see the first professional steps happening within one company, I think a mid-sized company offers you the best of both worlds.
So let's talk a bit more about your leadership style. What do you think that your people, what do they say about you when you're not around?
That's a good question. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Next question, please.
Well, what do you think? What do you hope that they say?
If they talk about me, I hope actually they're not talking about me, but they're talking about their job and their tasks and our responsibilities. But let's say if they would talk about me, I think they would usually appreciate the combination of pushing them out of the comfort zone into new areas, but having fun in a trusted environment. So I think usually people appreciate that I'm very down to earth. I don't, as I mentioned earlier, I would never request anything from anyone which I wouldn't be ready myself. Sometimes, I'm asking one of our SVPs, hey, can you please clean up the meeting room? We get a new client coming. Yeah. Because I have to do something else. But they are doing it, and no one is somehow, because I'm doing it as well. So it's kind of, we need to, as a team, we need to have that trusted basis. And I think that's something in a positive way they would say. Yep. Now the negative ones, what would they say? Am I too ambitious? So I'm a bit. I would like to see things happening. Okay. I guess that's
the only way that we can get forward. No?
That's right. And sometimes I'm stretching it too much. I would say. I'm pushing too much, and I think that's kind of the something. If someone would say something in that sense about me, that I'm sometimes too pushy. Mm-hmm. Especially if I see things not happening, it has various reasons. But also with empowerment, it doesn't mean that things shouldn't happen. It actually opposite. With the empowerment principle, it should happen faster because it's the person's own style, how to drive things forward. Yeah. But if I don't see that happening, I'm getting impatient, and then of course then I'm following more closer, and I'm following up issues more closer.
You shared with us that your Myers-Briggs type personality profile is ENFJ, also known as the protagonist. And so ENFJs, they are natural born leaders. They are passionate, have a high level of charisma. Typical jobs include politicians, coaches, teachers, and they like to reach out and inspire others to achieve and to do good in the world. Typically, people with your profile, they get great pride and joy in guiding others to work together and to improve themselves and the community. How does that resonate for you?
Sounds too good to be true,
It's amazing, yeah?
Yeah, it's amazing, yeah. That's an interesting one when you do a personality check,
Well, it's a self-assessment, so...
Yeah, it's a self-assessment, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the strengths that come with this profile, and then you tell me which words that pop out, is people with this personality profile, they're tolerant, they're reliable, charismatic, altruistic, and natural leaders. Which sounds correct, or which you say, I'm not sure about? They all sound good?
Yeah, so Tolerant, I would think so. Yeah, that's definitely.
When you achieve your goals, then you're tolerant.
Yeah, yeah. It depends how you define it. Yeah. No, but I would think well, people are tolerance has various aspects. But for example, tolerance towards stress is something. For example, I'm tolerant towards a hectic lifestyle.
Okay.
I'm actually probably in the middle of a hectic lifestyle, but I like that. That's how I thrive in a sense. Yeah?
Okay.
So there's a few of that attitudes I would agree to.
So you're stress resistant?
Stress resistant to a certain level, I would think. I'm. Let's say it's always relative, right? So my wife would say yes.
That's good.
So, yeah, that's good. Yeah, also many of the working colleagues would say that. But then I also have, a friend of mine. I'm admiring him for his stress resistancy. So there's always this kind of way of.
How do you manage your stress? Do you do specific things? I mean, do you go bicycling? Do you do photography? Do you do Zen meditation? What is it that you do to manage your stress?
I can switch off somehow, I don't know why, but if I have a very stressful situation, when I'm at home, for example, I can actually switch off from that situation. So I think that's very important, that you have phases where you can relax and let your body recover in a sense, and how do I do that? It's difficult to say. So we had a corporate event a year ago or so, I can't remember, and we had a presenter coming over, Bernd Gross. I don't know if you remember him. He's an Olympic medal winner in swimming.
Yeah.
I think
it's family Gross.
No.
Almost.
No, almost, yeah. No, but I had a very nice discussion with him, and we talked exactly about that point, because he actually explained that he believes he won because he did he went the extra mile. He had that mindset of extra mile, which I'm completely convinced that's true.
Yeah.
You need to drive and push the extra mile to be really successful in what you're doing. And I asked him exactly the same question. I asked him, so what do you do? Because the drawback when you do the extra mile, you always try to do your best, is you need to relax at some point of time. You need to stay concentrated.
Yeah.
And if you always drive the extra mile, you're losing concentration. And then you're making mistakes and so on. And you're getting powered, you're losing the whole energy and so on. So, and he told me that his secret is really to force himself for 10 minutes a day to completely switch off the brain. And his trick was that he watches out of a car when he drives, it's not when he's not driving, but he's sitting in the car, and forces himself to watch what's happening on the street. And you know what? I think I have a similar thing when I'm coming home. I wouldn't have defined that before speaking to him. It's a similar thing. It's kind of, I'm forcing myself to switch off, and I do that while I'm trying not to think really. I'm trying to
just to be present
to
at
be
home.
present, and it takes a while before I then start with my private business.
Yeah. Okay. The development points with people with your profile. Or the
areas of improvement.
That's the word I was looking for.
It feels a bit like a management discussion now. So
that's a good way to get to know you a little bit better. Is the areas of development for some people with this profile is that they can be overly idealistic, sometimes too selfless, sometimes too sensitive, and sometimes they struggle to make tough decisions. Do you recognize any of these, and how have you overcome them? Because as a leader, as a CTO of a technology company, you have to make tough decisions? Or
They are all applicable in a sense. Let's say I'm not trying to criticize your employee management discussion we're having here they can at the moment, but it's always situational. I believe, you know, it's in certain situations. Obviously, you have to make hard decisions. You know, I remember my company I was working in beforehand. I don't want to say the name now. It was a matter of survival. So a company needed to be restructured. So we had to make decisions in terms of letting people go.
That's tough for you, I can imagine.
That's a decision which is tough, but it always depends on the perspective, and it's not easy to tell people. I agree, yeah. Especially if you have, you know, if an emotional coefficient, or how do you call it in English, when you an EQ, when you kind of you know exactly what's happening and what the other person is thinking, and that makes it even tougher sometimes, you know. And I have to admit that's true. But then you know, when you think it through the situation, you let 20% of the teams go, but you keep 80%, and that's why you do it. Because it's actually the motivation is a very positive motivation why you do it, but the decision is a tough decision, and that helps me. That kind of thinking helps me to do tough decisions, because I know there is not easy when you lead in a style I'm leading, because I have a personal leadership style. That's clear. But then on the other hand, for me it's also about if the team trusts me, you know, I have also to enforce and do things which ensures that, for example, productivity and efficiency is up and running. So
I can imagine you have a very coaching style of working with your people, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So, and how do you, and that it comes natural to you?
Yeah.
That you don't need to follow 7 courses, that you're a natural coach and teacher, and to get most out of your people?
Well, when I did my MBA at London Business School, right, so I did a lot of educations on organizational behavior styles, management styles, teaching styles. I was actually naturally, before doing a lot of this, or you know, many things also in the wrong way, but you know, the education at London Business School helped me to put things in a more academic perspective, and rounded and grounded me in a sense, you know, and so it's not only just natural. I don't believe, you know, in you have it or not. I believe in that you can work very hard to acquire capabilities or skills or competences, and that's the way I see it. So it's you know, there's always a balance between instincts and natural behaviors, and then the you know, the
capabilities that we acquire by
exactly.
learning by doing, basically.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So trust is a very important value for you, can imagine. What are other values that you find very important in your life? And let's put the question like this: you have a 7-year-old son.
Yeah.
What are the values that you want him to grow up with?
Yeah, that's a good. So I want him to be a good football player. Is that enough if I say that, or do I
for
need
which
any
team? For
Fortuna Düsseldorf, of course. You know? It's a local team. So we are actually in the first leagues on the Bundesliga since a year now. Yeah, exactly.
So you want him to be a team player?
Yeah, no, but
that's football. That's important.
Yeah,
team
that's
is
right.
important.
That's right. Yeah. So I guess I want him to appreciate hard work, honestly. So I think that's important for me. I do, you know, a friend of mine is photographer, and when you watch him doing his job, it's quite amazing. He's not just taking a photo and saying that's going to make my prize. I win the prize with that picture, but he is taking it so serious that he works hours and hours on one photo. and the probability that he gets a good outcome out of that is of course much higher than you just take one photo. And so some people see then the outcome and saying, hey, that's a lucky shot. It wasn't a lucky shot because he was working very hard to get that perfect picture in place. What is for him the perfect picture? That mindset, hard work, increases the probability of success. That's for me a very important mindset, which I would like my son to appreciate.
Bernd, in your career you had a lot of success, but I'm sure there was also a couple of failures in there. Would you mind sharing us one of your most brilliant failures that you ever accomplished?
That's a tough one. So let me think about one. Is maybe it's I cannot say the name of the company, but I was responsible for a long-term acquisition of a client. Was actually a project with a few hundred million euros involvement. We worked, I think, 18 months lead time. We worked 18 months on that project. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out. So the client deselected us from the process and selected the competitor in that environment. And why is that? Was that a failure? Why I took it as a personal failure was that the client stated that they did not trust us in the engagement.
And that's one of the worst things for you, not to be trusted.
Exactly. That's one of the worst things. So when and this situation helped me actually to before I kind of always separated internal and external in a very strict way. The way I communicated and so on. Sort of, I don't know why, but I kind of felt that's a professional behavior. You know, you are at the customer side, you have your agenda and you're factual and you run through your topics. And I did not really appreciate this, as many years ago, the importance of authenticity, the importance of a natural way of just being yourself, also with a client, so that they kind of get to know you, because that's if you shield yourself, they cannot trust you. So you need to be open. You need to
be authentic, open, because people buy from people.
People buy from people, and you know, and I was probably too young to fully appreciate and understand that. So I changed that, and so it helped me to become a much stronger and self-confident a person in front of our clients and customers. So that was really kind of a tipping point experience. I felt, you know, we lost that 18 months work, and since I was heading the team, and the client tells to our management, we didn't select you because of trust. You can imagine what I had to listen to, you know, when that
your best day.
No. but you know what? It was a great after with the hindsight, you know, the benefit of hindsight was a great experience because it really rounded me as a person. Yeah.
Okay. So, Bernd, in your professional life, when is it that you feel most happy? When you go home or start in the morning and say, well, this is really good?
Yeah, that's a good one. So if I really feel we have achieved something, which created something, so I'm actually, let me answer it in a different way. I feel frustrated if I just finished my emails, yeah, because I feel that's so passive. You know, that's so doing emails for me is not really. I mean, it's part of the work, I know. But it's not what I want to achieve in business life, because I want to drive something forward. Yep. And in many ways, email actually keeps you from doing things, driving things forward. So I feel very, very happy and satisfied if I can see that, if I had a great workshop with a client, if we achieved a milestone, we released a new release with functionalities, I feel proud of being part of the team achieving something. So kind of this kind of an action-oriented outcome in a day is something personally I think that's kind of makes my day, you know, or my weekend. You know?
And in your career and in your life, who are the people that you look up to? Who are your mentors that you learned from, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, over my 25 plus years working experience, I had various, mini heroes, so to speak, my personal heroes in the in companies and so on, and with various different attitudes, and I guess people helping me to form myself, to create my principles, and I think that's very important. The ones I remember most are the ones who took time to help and coached me in soft skills, because that's so important. And that's when you start, especially when you start your professional career, you think a lot of hard skill stuff, You do. I remember I have been a product manager myself many years back, and I remember then I was actually so proud to know the roadmap and to even could completely understand what on the coding side happened and so on. And but actually, with the benefit of hindsight, that was so not so important actually, which I positioned as the most important things. And I forgot to ensure that the team was working efficient, that there was a continuous communication between the engineering team and the customers, which I should have moderated. So a lot of stuff. And for me, the ones I remember, my managers or from different departments who helped me to shape my soft skills are the ones who really helped me to facilitate my professional career.
Okay, so what would you advise younger people in your team or outside of Software AG that have the ambition to become CTO or digital leaders in technology companies, and that are young and ambitious? What would your advice to them be?
On the soft skill side, or let me start even in another way. I think the focus towards the outcome is so important. So meaning in our software product world, it means the end user using your software. What do we want to achieve? What's the experience we want to create? That's so important, and it's often so easily forgotten. So one advice is that that needs training. It needs training and continuous reminding yourself. You need to rewire your brain to some sense, because naturally it's more focused towards your teammates, towards your corporation, towards your environment. That's how we are as human beings. So taking a position outside of that environment towards the other end, so to speak, is a quite unnatural thing to do, and that's why it's often forgotten by teams.
So learning how to put yourself in the shoes of the customer,
yes,
is that what you...
Yes, and that continuously, not just once a day or something like this, but continuously being the advocate of the customer and the end customer. So by the way, there's a difference between customer and end customer. So the end customer is really using it. Sometimes we have customers who are paying us, but they're not using it. These rather complex value chains and distribution chains we have nowadays.
Now let's look a bit into the future. You're clearly ambitious, you're hardworking, you have a vision of where the company is going. So where do you see Software AG and the machine-to-machine IoT business in this 5 years? Of course, it's impossible to predict the future, but where do you see things going?
So I think Software AG has a unique position at the moment. We have 3 very, very important capabilities in our software portfolio. One is integration. We are one of the leading integration middleware provider globally. I mentioned to you, 25% of the banking segment uses analytics from us. So I would call it application of operational analytics, and it's also a very strong area we have. And IoT analytics, maybe together, you put it together, and then the platform technology we have through Cumulocity acquisition, and we have deployed it globally over with quite a lot of global deployments on our platform, which is not so known because it's a white labeled offering. You know, a lot of clients like Siemens MindSphere, for example, base their technology on ours, partly at least, or Adamos Group, machine manufacturers here in Germany, like Karl Mayer, Zeiss, Dürr, Engel, DMG Mori, but it's not so known because the end product is branded with their own brand as a digital service. So, but all of that is very important capabilities in terms of the market vision we have, which is a truly connected world. So everything will be connected. The physical world and the virtual world converting, and there's a lot of data points, a lot of data generators like the machine or consumer products, or in smart city use cases, for example, parking sensors. You have sensors, actuators, and connected machines and things everywhere. And in that world, the capability I just mentioned plays a massive role. And that's what we want to do. We want to help our clients, our customers, master the challenges of a truly connected world. Maybe because it's so important, I believe, if I still have time to give you an example of a client there.
Sure.
It's a retail client, a retail company. And they, the CIO of that retail company did the last 20 years manage the typical retail IT systems. But during the last 2 years or so, he got actually, he was requested to also manage stores. Store environments. So that's what we in the industrial Internet of Things we call ITOT, information technology, operational technology. In the retail environment,
a merger of that.
And we see a merger. Suddenly, this guy who's he did IT, now suddenly delivers marketing input about how many people enter the store, where they are, on which shelf area. He does even cash management now. He has connected all the cash machines, does real-time cash management. He even does energy management. There's these fridges and so on, so he optimizes the consumption of these through connected experiences. Or then he even, sometimes you see in the vegetable area these display units, electronic, price displays or signage type of price information signs. So he manages that, in stores. So something, he did 20 years. He thought, okay, I've seen everything. But now that person started to involve into what I would call a truly connected world reality, because it's so much broader and wider, the complexities nowadays. And our technology can help in these situations. We help actually companies and operations to strive in these environments and to differentiate and to optimize their processes.
And how do you, that's where Software AG is going, and you see the role of Software AG as a company. How do you see yourself in evolving in the next 5 years? You came from big corporate, then in a startup, built it into a big mid-sized company, got acquired by Software AG. Now you're 7 months the CTO of Software AG. How do you see yourself evolving in this technology world? So
I see myself, on the CTO role I'm having at the moment, enjoying it a lot. It's fun. It's nice because it adds new elements to my job. For example, now I'm sometimes, flying to New York and have a roadshow with hedge fund managers, something I haven't done before. I enjoy that, because I kind of try to understand their perspective, what are they interested in, looking at, so for example, investor relations in a very different way, because we are a stock traded company. Before I had my venture capital relationships, but that's different. They have different motivations and so on. And so in that sense, I have a strong satisfaction by doing what I'm doing, and I don't foresee myself doing something else in the foreseeable future. You know?
So with this, Bernd, I would like to thank you for your time and for your hospitality here. I think it was an excellent conversation. We learned a lot. We got to know you a little bit better, I think, and what drives you and how you are wired as a digital leader. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.